The coffee mug danced across Dr. Emily Anderson's desk, rattling against her scattered notes before she could grab it. Her first thought was earthquake, until she noticed the readings on her monitor spiking in patterns she'd never seen before. The SETI Deep Space Monitoring Station's main receiver was going haywire, its usual background hum of cosmic radiation transformed into something that made her skin prickle. "Martinez," she called out, her voice echoing through the nearly empty facility. "Are you seeing this on your end?" Her colleague's response came back garbled through the intercom, masked by a strange interference that shouldn't have been possible with their shielded systems. "It's breaking through every filter we've got, Doc. Whatever this is, it's like nothing in our databases." Emily's fingers flew across her keyboard, trying to isolate the signal source. The tracking system pointed to the Carina Nebula, specifically a region they'd designated as Silent Zone 7, named for its unusual lack of radio emissions. Now it was anything but silent. She pulled up the raw data, and her breath caught. Hidden within the chaos was a pattern, complex but undeniably deliberate. Base mathematics at first. Prime numbers, geometric sequences, the kind of universal language they'd always theorized would be used for first contact. But beneath that was something else, something that made her hands shake as she decoded it. "Get Director Collins," she told Martinez. "Now." The next few hours passed in a blur. Emily's small overnight team grew as more scientists arrived, drawn by urgent phone calls and the promise of something unprecedented. They clustered around her workstation, watching as she pieced together the message hidden within the signal. "It's not just mathematics," she explained, pointing to her latest analysis. "See these patterns here? They're describing physical structures, technological systems far beyond anything we've developed, and they're breaking down." Director Collins leaned closer, his usual skepticism wavering. "Breaking down how?" Emily paused, searching for the right words. Imagine someone trying to explain how a skyscraper works while it's collapsing around them. These beings, whoever they are, they're showing us their technology, so we can understand what's happening to it. They call themselves the Orcs. The signal continued pouring in, each new segment adding to their understanding. The Orcs' message painted a picture of a civilization in crisis, facing an enemy they couldn't fight. Their own star transformed into something that was slowly destroying them. They'd already lost 3 colony worlds to the phenomenon. "But why contact us?" someone asked. "We're centuries behind them technologically. What could we possibly do to help?" Emily was about to respond when her computer chimed with a new alert. The latest decoded segment showed something different. Data about the Orcs themselves. As the information resolved on her screen, she felt her scientific detachment crumble. They were crystalline beings, living architecture that processed stellar energy directly through their structure. Their cities weren't just places they lived. They were part of who they were, a vast network of conscious crystal that was now being torn apart by their star's altered radiation. "Look at these readings," she said, pulling up Earth's radiation data. "The background radiation we've evolved to handle. Our bodies deal with something similar every day. We've developed biological mechanisms they never needed, living in their perfect crystal structures, until now." The implications hit her like a physical force. The most advanced civilization humanity had ever encountered needed help not because of our technology, but because of our primitive organic nature, the very thing that made us so different from them. Her phone buzzed. A text from her daughter Katie about her science fair project on radiation-resistant fungi. Emily stared at it for a long moment, her mind racing with possibilities, sometimes the simplest solutions. "Director," she said, turning to Collins with a new urgency in her voice. "I need to make some calls. I think I know how we might be able to help them. But we're going to need to move fast, and we're going to have to convince a lot of people to take a chance on a very strange idea." The signal continued pulsing overhead, carrying the desperation of a dying civilization across thousands of light years. They had time to save them, but not much. And somewhere in Earth's simplest organisms might lie the key to preserving the most advanced beings humanity had ever encountered. With all due respect, Dr. Anderson, you're suggesting we bet humanity's first interstellar contact on your daughter's science project. The UN Security Council representative from China didn't bother hiding his skepticism. On the massive display screen dominating the emergency session, his face joined 11 others in various states of disbelief. Emily gripped the podium tighter. I'm suggesting we consider all options, including insights from unexpected sources. Katie's work with radiation-resistant fungi led me to contact Dr. Jack Roberts. The Yellowstone rogue, interrupted the British representative. The man was practically excommunicated from the scientific community. For being right, Emily shot back. She nodded to her assistant, who brought up new slides. Dr. Roberts discovered extremophile organisms in Yellowstone's hot springs that don't just survive radiation. They thrive on it. His papers were rejected because his findings seemed impossible. Until now. The chamber doors burst open, and Commander Michael Hayes strode in, still in his NASA flight suit. He wasn't scheduled to speak for another hour, but Emily had learned the former Navy SEAL had his own way of doing things. Ladies and gentlemen, Hayes said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being heard in crisis situations. While we debate, the Arctians are dying. Dr. Anderson's theory isn't just sound, it's our only shot. He pulled up his own data, showing the latest deep space readings. The radiation signature from their system has increased by 18% in the last 24 hours. 3 more crystal cities have shown critical stress fractures. We're not talking about a gradual decline anymore. We're watching a genocide in slow motion. Emily seized the moment. The Arctians' technology is failing them because it can't adapt fast enough. But Earth's organisms. She brought up microscope footage from Katie's science fair project alongside Dr. Roberts' Yellowstone samples. Have been adapting to radiation since life began. We don't need to invent a solution. We need to find the ones that already exist. The French representative leaned forward. And your unusual team can do this. We've already begun, Emily said, signaling Dr. Roberts to join them via video link from his makeshift lab. His beard was wilder than ever, but his eyes sparkled with the intensity she remembered from his controversial lectures years ago. Show them, Jack. Roberts held up a Petri dish containing what looked like ordinary moss. This is generation 50 of radiation-exposed samples. We've compressed thousands of years of evolution into days using the Arctians' data to recreate their star's radiation signature. Watch. He exposed the sample to an intense burst of radiation that would have killed most organisms instantly. The moss not only survived, it grew, its structure changing to incorporate the energy in ways that made several council members gasp. That's impossible, someone muttered. That's terrestrial life, Roberts corrected. We've been so busy trying to survive in space by hiding from radiation, we never stopped to ask if we could work with it instead. The Arctians need to learn what Earth's simplest organisms figured out billions of years ago. Commander Hayes stepped forward again. The Odyssey can be ready for launch in 72 hours. My crew is prepared. We have the theory. We have the samples. And thanks to the Arctians' FTL designs, we have the means to reach them. All we need is your authorization. Emily watched the council members' faces, seeing the moment when skepticism began giving way to possibility. She thought of Katie, who'd sparked this idea by asking why they couldn't just teach bad radiation to be good, looking at the problem with a child's simple wisdom. She thought of the Arctians, their crystalline forms cracking under forces they'd never evolved to resist. The most advanced civilization we've ever encountered, she said quietly, needs our help not because we're stronger or smarter, but because we come from a world that never let us be perfect. Every organism on Earth has had to adapt, change, survive. That's not our weakness. That's our greatest strength. The council president cleared his throat. Dr. Anderson, Commander Hayes, Dr. Roberts, You have 48 hours to prove this can work on a larger scale. If you succeed, you'll have your mission. If you fail, we won't," Emily said, already heading for the door, with Hayes and Robert's image following her on a tablet. "The Arctians haven't run out of time yet. Let's make sure they don't." The Odyssey's warning siren screamed to life 3 days into their journey, jolting Emily from her research station. Red emergency lights bathed the ship's laboratory in an ominous glow, matching the urgent tone in Commander Hayes' voice over the intercom. "All hands, brace for emergency maneuvers. Massive solar flare detected on an intercept course. Impact in 6 minutes." Dr. Roberts burst into the lab, his normally disheveled appearance now truly chaotic. "The samples. If we lose them, we lose everything," Emily finished, already moving. They'd brought Earth's most radiation-resistant organisms, tardigrades, Deinococcus radiodurans bacteria, and Robert's specialized fungi. Each one was precious, irreplaceable this far from home. "Status of the shields." Hayes' voice crackled through to engineering. "Traditional shields at 60% and failing," came the response. "The radiation levels are off the charts." Emily shared a look with Roberts. They'd prepared for this, tested it dozens of times on Earth, but never at this scale. "Jack, the tardigrade shield. It's time." Roberts nodded grimly, rushing to the experimental shielding controls. They'd integrated their biological samples into the ship's defensive systems, a hybrid of technology and evolved resilience that had made the engineering team question their sanity. Now it was their only chance. "Activating BioShield Alpha," Roberts announced, his fingers dancing across the console. "Emily, I need you to monitor the cellular response. If the specimens begin to break down, 4 minutes to impact." Emily watched her readings as the microscopic organisms, integrated into panels throughout the ship's hull, began responding to the approaching radiation. The tardigrades were already entering their cryptobiotic state, but something was different. The faster-than-light field surrounding them seemed to be affecting their transformation. "Jack, look at this. The FTL field is accelerating their evolution. The cellular structure is adapting in real time." 2 minutes. Robert swore under his breath. "The field is causing mutations we never saw in testing. If they adapt wrong." 1 minute. "All hands, brace for impact." Emily made a decision. Divert power from the conventional shields. Let the bioshield take the full hit. "That's insane," someone shouted. "Trust the life forms that have survived every mass extinction Earth has thrown at them," she shot back. "Commander." A moment of silence that felt like eternity. "Then, do it." The ship shuddered as the conventional shields powered down. On Emily's monitor, the tardigrade-based shield began to glow, its structure changing in ways that defied their simulations. The radiation from the solar flare hit them like a physical wall. But they didn't die. Instead, Emily watched in amazement as the evolved tardigrades didn't just resist the radiation. They absorbed it, transformed it. The ship's power levels actually began to rise. "Status report," Hayes demanded. We're not just surviving," Emily said, her voice filled with wonder. "The specimens are using the radiation as fuel. The FTL field has pushed their evolution into overdrive. They're protecting us and powering us at the same time." Roberts was already analyzing the data. "This changes everything. Emily, if we can replicate this with the Arctian crystals, we might not just save them," she finished. "We might help them evolve into something stronger." The crisis passed, but its implications echoed through the ship. Their journey through FTL space wasn't just taking them to the Arctians. It was transforming their potential solution in ways they'd never imagined. Later, in the ship's observation deck, Emily recorded a message for Katie. "Your science project just helped save our ship," she said, smiling into the camera. "And it taught us something important. Sometimes the most powerful evolution happens when we're forced out of our comfort zone, into the unknown." She looked out at the streaking stars, thinking of the Arxian civilization, waiting for help they didn't yet know could come from such humble origins. "We're bringing them more than just Earth organisms," she continued. "We're bringing them Earth's greatest lesson, that life doesn't just endure change, it thrives on it." Behind her, the bioshield shimmed with its new capabilities, a testament to life's endless capacity to adapt, to survive, to become more than anyone could have predicted. They still had thousands of light years to go, but for the first time, Emily was certain they would make it. The Arxian home system emerged from the blur of FTL travel like a painting made of light. Crystal cities hung in space around their dying star, each structure catching and refracting the strange radiation in prismatic cascades. Emily stood transfixed at the Odyssey's observation window, her scientific detachment warring with pure awe. "My God," Commander Hayes breathed beside her. "It's like someone built galaxies out of diamond." But the beauty couldn't hide the destruction. Through her tablet's enhanced imaging, Emily could see the fracture lines spreading through the nearest city satellite. Its crystal spires, each one housing thousands of Arxians, showed the telltale stress patterns they'd studied in the original transmission. "Multiple radiation spikes detected," the ship's AI announced, "approaching critical levels in Sector 7. Roberts rushed to the sensor station, his eyes widening at the readings. "The star's worse than we thought. These energy patterns, they're not just destroying the crystals, they're warping them somehow." Before Emily could respond, a new voice filled the bridge, harmonic, multitoned, like wind through crystal caves. "Human vessel Odyssey, you have entered a quarantine zone. Your biological signatures are incompatible with." The transmission cut off as a massive radiation surge hit the nearest city satellite. Emily watched in horror as fractures raced through its crystalline structure like lightning. The spires began to shimmer, vibrate. "No," she whispered. The city shattered. Thousands of crystalline forms scattered into space, their conscious matrices disrupted, their light fading. The Odyssey's crew stood frozen, witnessing what they'd come to prevent, helpless to stop it. Then Katie's fungi saved them all. The sample container in Emily's lab had cracked in the radiation surge, releasing spores into the ship's air filtration system. As the next wave of deadly radiation approached, the spores reacted with the ship's bioshield. New patterns formed, visible through the windows, organic crystalline structures that absorbed and redirected the energy. "Look!" Roberts shouted, pointing to where some of the spores had escaped through the external vents. They were interacting with the debris field from the shattered city, creating temporary bridges between broken crystal fragments. Some of the fragments began to stabilize, their light strengthening. "This is Commander Hayes of the Earth ship Odyssey." Hayes broadcast on all frequencies. "We come with a potential solution. Please, let us help." Silence stretched for long seconds. Then multiple voices responded at once, their crystalline harmonics carrying equal measures of desperation and distrust. "Your biological contamination threatens our remaining structures. We detected the energy transformation. The lost ones in Sector 7, some still function." A new voice cut through the chaos, deeper, more resonant. "I am Elder Crystallarch Vashar. Your ship's shield technology. It bears similarities to our ancestral patterns, yet moves like something alive." Emily stepped forward. "Because it is alive. We've brought organisms from Earth that don't just survive radiation. They evolve to use it. What you just witnessed was an accidental interaction between our simplest life forms and your crystal technology." "Impossible," another voice declared. "Biological systems are too chaotic, too imperfect." "Look at your readings," Roberts interrupted. "The fragments protected by our fungi are still intact. They're not just surviving. They're beginning to adapt to your star's radiation." Through the window, they could see Arxian ships approaching, their crystal hulls already showing signs of stress. But between them and the Odyssey, the cloud of fungi-infused crystal fragments continued to grow, forming patterns that mimicked both biological and crystalline structures. Elder Vashar spoke again, their tone carrying something new. Hope. Your biology. It dances with our crystals. Such communion has not been seen since the ancient days, before we learned to grow our cities from pure light. Sometimes, Emily said, thinking of all the times Earth's imperfect, chaotic life had survived what should have killed it. Taking a step backward lets you leap forward in a new direction. The elder's response was interrupted by another radiation surge, larger than the last. But this time, they were ready. As the wave hit, Emily watched the hybrid shield of tardigrades, fungi, and crystal fragments light up like a new constellation. Within that light, she saw the future, not just survival, but evolution. The Arctians would never be the same. Neither would humanity. The Arctian quarantine chamber was a perfect sphere of living crystal, its walls humming with trapped starlight. Emily stood at its center with Roberts and Hayes, while Elder Vashar's towering crystalline form shifted through colors she had no words for. Your biological contamination spreads. The Elder's harmonics vibrated with concern. Already, 3 more city segments show organic growth patterns. Those patterns are saving lives, Roberts argued, pulling up holographic data with their modified tablets. The infection rate matches exactly with crystal preservation. Every structure touched by our organisms shows increased radiation resistance. But Emily saw the deeper fear in the Elder's light patterns. That's not what really concerns you, is it? The chamber resonated with Vashar's sigh, a shimmer of violet and gold. The shared consciousness of our people. It flows through the pure crystal matrices. Your organisms don't just change our physical forms. They alter the patterns of thought itself. Commander Hayes stepped forward, his military bearing softened by understanding. You're afraid you'll lose yourselves. Become something else. We may already be losing ourselves, Vashar admitted. The radiation corrupts our network. Crystal lines are fragmenting. Some speak of hearing songs in the chaos, voices in the static. Yesterday, an entire crish of younglings began communicating in patterns we cannot understand. Emily's tablet chimed with an alert from the Odyssey's lab, the latest simulation results. Her hands shook as she read them. Because they're adapting, she whispered, not just physically. Your youngest are already evolving new ways to process the radiation. They're becoming hybrid beings, Roberts finished, studying the same data. The fungal networks aren't just protecting the crystal structure. They're creating new neural pathways, organic and crystalline thinking, merging into something new. Vashar's form darkened. Then we are already dying. What we become will not be Arctian. That's not true, Emily said fiercely. My daughter has a cat. When she first got it, she was afraid loving it would make her less human. I told her that love doesn't subtract, it adds. Every new connection makes us more, not less. The Elder's crystals chimed in what might have been surprise. You speak of a biological companion form as if it were family, Hayes offered. On Earth, we've learned that consciousness isn't diminished by new perspectives. It's enriched. Before Vashar could respond, a violent tremor shook the chamber. Emergency signals pulsed through the crystal walls. Patterns even Emily had learned to read as danger. The main archive. Vashar's harmonics shattered into discord. The radiation barriers are failing. 12,000 years of crystalline memory. Roberts was already moving. The fungi samples in my kit, if we can get them into the archive's matrix before total collapse. No. A new voice cut through the chamber as another Arctian materialized, all sharp angles and brutal geometry. A High Council forbids further contamination of pure knowledge structures. The organics must be contained, the infected sectors cleansed. Counselor Revox, Vashar interrupted. These humans are primitives who would reduce us to crawling in dirt. Revox's form pulsed with crimson light. Better to let the radiation take us than become biological. Emily felt the shift in the chamber's energy. More Arctians were arriving, their crystal forms dividing clearly between those showing early signs of organic integration and those maintaining rigid purity. The divide she'd feared was happening. Then her tablet showed her something that changed everything. "Look," she said, holding up the screen. "This is a neural scan of an infected crystal segment compared to a pure one under radiation stress. The hybrid structure isn't just surviving. It's remembering better, storing information more efficiently. Your archives wouldn't be corrupted by adaptation. They'd be enhanced." The chamber hummed with debate frequencies as the Arctians processed this. Emily watched Revox's crystalline patterns, seeing the moment doubt cracked his certainty. "We're not asking you to become Earth organisms," she said softly. "We're offering you a way to become better Arctians. Different, yes, but stronger, more adaptive, more alive." Vashar's form resonated with decision. "The younglings who changed. Let us see them. Perhaps they can show us what we might become." As they left the chamber, Hayes murmured to Emily, "Did you really mean that about the cat?" She smiled. Katie's still allergic, but she adapted. That's what life does. Around them, the crystal city chimed with possibilities of change, while beneath their feet, the first threads of fungal networks began to weave new patterns in the ancient light. The stars screamed. That's how Emily's mind interpreted the massive radiation surge that ripped through the Arctian system. Through the Odyssey's reinforced windows, she watched crystal spires fracture across 3 different city satellites simultaneously. The bioshields they'd managed to implement were failing under the unprecedented assault. "Status report," Hayes barked, his command center now integrated with Arctian crystal tech that sparkled with emergency signals. "Archive vaccination holding at 62%, Roberts called out, monitoring the spread of their biological solutions through key Arctian structures. "But the radiation's mutating faster than our organisms can adapt. We're losing ground." Emily's fingers flew across her hybrid console, organic components pulsing beneath crystalline displays. The FTL journey had accelerated their specimen's evolution, but this new radiation was different. More aggressive, more chaotic. "Elder Vashar," she called through the crystal comm, "we need to evacuate the outer rings. The structural integrity." A sound like shattering galaxies cut her off. Through the observation window, they watched in horror as an entire residential complex, home to over 10,000 Arctians, began to disintegrate. "No," Roberts whispered. "No, no, no." Then something impossible happened. In the debris field, where crystal fragments spun in the stellar wind, points of light began to emerge. The broken pieces were moving, drawing together, forming new patterns that looked neither purely crystalline nor purely organic. "The younglings," Vashar's voice hummed through the crystal comm. "They're singing to the fragments, teaching them to dance." Emily's sensors confirmed it. The Arctian children, their consciousness already adapted to hybrid existence, were somehow communicating with both the crystal structures and the Earth organisms at a quantum level. They weren't just surviving the radiation, they were using it to create something new. "Jack," Emily shouted, her mind racing. "The FTL field. Remember how it accelerated our specimen's evolution?" Robert's eyes widened. "If we could generate a controlled field around the entire system, we'd need every drop of power from both our ships and the Arctian grid," Hayes cut in. "And we have no idea what it would do to their consciousness network." "We don't have a choice," Emily said, watching more crystal structures begin to fail. "Vashar, can you?" "The children have already shown us the way." The Elder's harmonics resonated with certainty. "Better to become something new than to die as we are." The next minutes were a blur of desperate activity. Hayes coordinated with Arctian ships to form a sphere around their star, while Roberts reprogrammed their bioshields to channel the FTL field's effects. Emily worked with Vashar to prepare the consciousness network for an unprecedented transformation. "Katie," Emily recorded quickly into her tablet, "if this works, remember that the biggest discoveries come from being willing to take the biggest risks." If it doesn't, I love you. And your cat. Field generation in 10 seconds, Hayes announced. Through the crystal comm, they could hear the children's song growing stronger, a harmony of biology and crystal that seemed to reach into the quantum fabric of space itself. 5 seconds. Emily grabbed Robert's hand. He squeezed back. Now, the universe turned inside out. Emily felt the FTL field wash over her like a wave of possibility, carrying the children's song on frequencies that shouldn't exist. Through the window, she watched crystal and organic matter dance together in ways that defied physics, guided by the hybrid consciousness of a new generation that didn't know they weren't supposed to be able to do this. When the light faded, the Arxian system had changed forever. The crystal cities still hung in space, but they pulsed now with internal light that followed organic rhythms. Structures that had been rigid and geometric now flowed like liquid crystal, responding to the thoughts and needs of their inhabitants. And threading through it all was a network of fungal crystal hybrid material that didn't just resist the star's radiation. It transformed it into pure creation energy. "It's beautiful," Vashar whispered, their own form now shimmering with traces of organic patterns. "We are beautiful." Emily watched a group of Arxian children guide a damaged crystal segment into healing itself, their hybrid consciousness weaving patterns that were neither Earth nor Arxian, but something gloriously new. "We didn't just save them," Robert said softly. "They saved themselves. We just showed them it was possible." The star pulsed overhead, its radiation now feeding the very civilization it had nearly destroyed. Evolution had taken an unexpected turn, proving once again that life's greatest strength wasn't in remaining pure, but in finding new ways to dance with the unknown. Emily stood in what had once been the Arxian Central Archive, now transformed into something that defied traditional description. Crystal walls rippled with organic patterns, while fungal networks threaded through transparent corridors like neural pathways made visible. The entire structure seemed to breathe, adapting and shifting to optimize itself with each new surge of stellar radiation. "The integration rate exceeds our wildest projections," Roberts said, his tablet displaying streams of data from their latest analysis. "Every hybrid structure shows a 300% increase in information storage capacity. The biological components aren't just protecting the crystal matrices, they're enhancing them." A group of young Arxians flowed past, their forms now a mesmerizing blend of crystalline geometry and organic fluidity. They were teaching older Arxians how to interface with the new hybrid systems, their consciousness dancing between states that would have been impossible just days ago. "Remarkable," Commander Hayes observed, watching an elder Arxian merge with a wall to access ancient records, biological patterns facilitating a deeper connection than pure crystal had ever allowed. "They're not just surviving the change. They're thriving in it." Emily's tablet chimed with an incoming transmission from Earth. The UN Security Council had been waiting for updates, trying to understand the implications of what had happened here. How did you explain to traditional power structures that evolution had just taken an exponential leap? Dr. Anderson. Elder Vashar's harmonics now carried traces of organic resonance, creating sounds that made Emily think of whale songs mixed with wind through crystal caves. "The Council of Transformation requests your presence." They followed Vashar through corridors that seemed to anticipate their passage, the hybrid architecture responding to both conscious and unconscious needs. In the central chamber, Arxian leaders, including the formerly resistant Revox, had gathered around a holographic display of their star system. "The radiation conversion networks are operating at 98% efficiency," Revox announced, their once rigid form now flowing with subtle organic patterns. "What nearly destroyed us has become our greatest source of advancement." But they turned to Emily. "We face an unexpected challenge." The hologram zoomed in on various hybrid structures throughout the system. In each one, the integration of biological and crystalline elements was producing new forms, new patterns, new possibilities that no one had anticipated. "The innovation rate is exponential," Roberts breathed, studying the data. Each new generation of hybrid structures is more advanced than the last. The potential applications are both thrilling and terrifying. Vashar completed. We need your help to understand these changes, to guide them. Our children grasp it instinctively, but we who remember the old ways, we need teachers. Emily watched a nearby wall shift to accommodate a group of Arxian scientists, its structure simultaneously serving as shelter, data storage, and biological processing center. You want us to stay? We want more than that, Ravok said. We want to establish Earth as the center for biocrystal engineering. Your world's biological diversity, combined with our crystal technology. The possibilities are endless. Hayes whistled softly. That's going to make for some interesting diplomatic discussions. It's not just about technology, Emily said, understanding the deeper implications. You want to learn from Earth's history of adaptation, of surviving change. You want our experience with evolution itself. Vashar's form pulsed with affirming light. Your world has faced extinction-level events multiple times, yet life always found a way to continue, to transform, to become stronger. We need that wisdom now more than ever. Through the chamber's transparent ceiling, Emily could see the Arxian star pulsing with energy that was now nurturing rather than destroying. Nearby, a group of hybrid children were teaching older Arxians how to sing new structures into existence, combining the precision of crystal engineering with the adaptability of biological growth. We'll need to establish protocols, Hayes began, but Emily was already thinking ahead, remembering Katie's simple question that had started all of this. Why can't we teach bad things to be good? No, she said softly. First, we need to learn from them. They've already surpassed our theories. The real question is, are we ready to evolve alongside them? Around them, the hybrid city hummed with possibility, each moment bringing new discoveries as two fundamentally different approaches to existence learned to dance together, creating symphonies of life and light that neither species had dreamed possible alone. 6 months later, Emily stood in her daughter's science classroom, surrounded by wide-eyed students and a holographic display of the transformed Arxian system. The hybrid cities now sparkled with a life that was neither purely crystal nor purely organic, but something magnificently new. And that, she told the children, is how a middle school science project about radiation-resistant fungi helped save an alien civilization. Katie beamed from her front row seat, her cat, now perfectly safe around her thanks to Arxian bioengineering, purring in her lap. The other students burst into questions, their enthusiasm reminding Emily of the Arxian younglings who had helped bridge two fundamentally different forms of existence. Dr. Anderson. A small boy raised his hand. If the Arxians were so advanced, why did they need our help? Before Emily could answer, a harmonious chime filled the room. Elder Vashar's hybrid form materialized in the classroom's demonstration area, drawing gasps of wonder from the students. The Arxian's crystalline structure now flowed with organic patterns that shifted like aurora borealis. Because Vashar's voice rang like wind through living crystal, advancement is not the same as wisdom. Your world taught us that strength comes not from achieving perfection, but from embracing change. Through the classroom windows, Emily could see the first biocrystal spire rising above the city skyline, Earth's new interstellar research center. Commander Hayes was there now, coordinating with a joint human-Arxian team as they prepared to expand the hybrid technology to other worlds in need. The real breakthrough, Emily explained to the class, bringing up new holographic data, wasn't just combining our biology with their crystal technology. It was learning that consciousness itself could evolve, could find new ways to experience existence. The display showed the latest scans of hybrid Arxian children interfacing with the living cities, their thoughts flowing through networks that processed information in ways neither species had imagined possible. What had started as a desperate measure for survival had become a revolution in both technology and consciousness. Dr. Roberts sends his regards, Vashar announced, their form shimming with amusement. He's quite excited about the latest developments in the Yellowstone Research Station. The thermal vents are producing some rather interesting hybrid organisms. Emily smiled, remembering how Jack had practically moved into the new facility, his impossible theories now at the forefront of human-Arxian collaboration. His latest paper on quantum biocrystal computing was already being hailed as revolutionary, though he insisted the Arxian children had figured it out first. But the most valuable thing we learned, Emily continued, walking among the students, was that sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places. From asking simple questions, from being willing to try something that seems impossible. She paused at Katie's desk, resting a hand on her daughter's shoulder. From believing that life, in all its forms, has something to teach us. Vashar's form rippled with agreement, which is why we've come with an invitation. The Council of Transformation has approved the first student exchange program. We would be honored to host Earth's young minds in our learning centers, even as our children come to study here. The classroom erupted in excitement. Emily watched Katie's eyes light up with the same wonder she'd seen in the Arxian younglings. The pure joy of discovering new possibilities. Through the windows, the sun caught the biocrystal spire, sending ribbons of living light dancing across the city. In orbit, the first hybrid starships were taking shape, their designs incorporating lessons from both Earth's biosphere and Arxian crystal engineering. They would carry the seeds of this new collaboration to the stars, ready to help other civilizations face their own challenges. "Mom," Katie whispered, her hand raised even as she spoke, "I have another idea for my next science project." Emily looked at her daughter, then at Vashar, seeing the same anticipation of discovery in both. Above them, the biocrystal ceiling shifted in response to their emotions, creating patterns that celebrated the endless possibilities of life adapting, evolving, becoming more than anyone had dreamed possible. That, Emily said, is exactly how the next adventure begins. The universe, vast and mysterious, stretched out before them, but they would face it together, two civilizations made stronger by their differences, dancing among stars that now held not terror but promise. For in learning to help each other, they had discovered something profound. The future belonged not to those who insisted on remaining pure, but to those who dared to adapt, to change, to grow. And somewhere in that destiny, a simple question from a child would spark the next transformation.